And the first thing we're going to do is a pledge. Carolyn Smith, the state president for the Republican Women Federation, will lead us in the pledge if you'd all stand.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carolyn. There would be a few more people here, but we have quite a few of our regular members that are out of town or had prior commitments. So, and by the way, the next month meeting is October the 5th. It's on a Thursday. We're trying to get back to the first Thursday. Just a few shout outs. Roger Edwards is here from Republican Men's Club. And Liz Lynch from Sparks Women, stand up. She's the president. You already heard Carolyn. Nicholas St. John is here for Washoe Patriots. Everybody else is important. Who? Oh, Carol Feinberg with Conservative Talk Line. Tracy is running for County Commission, Tracy Thomas. And that's in Ward 4, the one that Vaughn has and Andriola has right now as an appointment. With that in mind, we'll go ahead and start here in a minute or so. Carolyn, do you want to make an announcement about your, less than a minute, about your convention?
I'll try. Yes, hi there. Yes, the Nevada Federation of Republican Women will be having their board meeting and convention October 2021, and then following that on October 22nd, we have a prayer breakfast. I encourage all our members to attend the convention. We're going to be dealing with a lot of important matters. We'll be dealing with bylaws. We'll be approving a budget. And most importantly, we'll be selecting a new set of officers for the 24-25 period. So you have a vote. You should be there. We shouldn't complain if we don't attend the meeting and say what you would like to say, what you're for, against, and then get your vote in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolyn. The next thing, I've been wanting to do this for a while. Karen Conrad, which happens to be Bill's wife, and Bill's co-partner with me on Redmo. But even since their men's club days, Karen has done the registration, and she's also the finance director for Redmo. And her helper, actually too, Janet Butcher. Stand up, both of you, come up here where they can see. And then, where's Gary? Gary, where is he? Huh? Gary over here, stand up, Gary, has helped tremendously too. Give him a nice round of applause. We have 6 minutes until we start the actual formal meeting. But we'll go ahead and start early because Channel 2 has to leave. And Daniel, see if I don't slaughter the name. How should, go ahead.
Thank you, Ray. The name is Daniel Honchariw. Honchariw. Think kangaroo is the best phonetic device my family has formulated over these past decades. For what it's worth, it was not our original name. It was given to us by Ellis Island, and we are the only Honchariws in the entire country.
It's a little hard to say, but he's with senior analyst with Nevada Policy and Research, the group. He's senior analyst. And with that in mind, start your presentation.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you, Bill, for having me here today. My goal today, as a representative of the Nevada Policy Research Institute, which is a 501c3 free market center-right think tank based in Las Vegas. We have a lot more name brand down south, but I myself moved up here recently and hope to expand our reach up north. My cards are littered around this room, so please feel free to pick one up, pick up one of these one-pagers, log on to our website and reach out to us. I'm here because we are trying to take the educational lead on defeating question 3. I think it's an important topic because it got lost in the 2020 midterm elections and snuck across the finish line. We at Nevada Policy believe question 3 would be the demise of what democracy remains in Nevada, and see no reason to inject more electoral reforms into an already distrusted political system. That's my opening monologue. Let's start the PowerPoint. So question 3, and a large reason why I got past the finish line last time around is because of the open primary aspect, but it has 2 components. Question 3 would install open primaries and what's called ranked choice voting, and it would enshrine them in the state constitution. So as in 2022, the 2024 Nevada statewide ballot will include question 3. Essentially, do you want state legislative offices, state cabinet level positions, and congressional elections to embrace ranked choice voting elections? And I'll remind you that it has to be passed by voters twice, 2022 and 2024, because it proposes to amend the Constitution. And so if we get a defeat at the ballot box in November, this question is dead. The issue is dead for the time being, and we can look to more meaningful election reforms. So again, open primaries, pretty basic concept. I think everybody in this room understands why that poses a real danger to the political party apparatus. You don't want, socialist Democrats diluting your votes, do you? But I think that's one of the main reasons why it crossed the finish line. Open primaries, we have a big, what they call disenfranchised independent voting base in this state. And a lot of people want to get involved in the primaries, but a lot of them didn't know that ranked choice voting is also attached. And I know that's a lot of text, but ranked choice voting is kind of complicated to explain. And it's inherently confusing. And this is, I think, the most pithy way, which fully encapsulates what it is. After you choose your pick one in the primary, the top 5 will advance. In the general, you will be given the option to list their preference of the 5 candidates in the general. If nobody receives more than 50%, then an instant runoff occurs. This will be done by machines, by software not yet contemplated by law. And these machines will eliminate the lowest vote getter and redistribute their second place votes and third place votes accordingly until somebody reaches 50%. Theoretically, you could take up to 4 rounds of instant runoff tabulations. So this is just a very generic, what does an RCV ballot look like? Here are 5 candidates. There are 5 ranking options. This is the generic RCV top 5 candidate. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like because question 3 just prescribes that if it's passed, the legislature gets to decide how and where these ballots will be developed and what they'll look like. So we know it'll look something like this. Already confusing enough, I think. Again, to review, question 3 got narrowly past the finish line in 2022, less than 6 percentage points. And that was despite the fact that proponents dramatically outspent the opponents of question 3 by about a 10-to-1 ratio. And so we at Nevada Policy, eager to take the educational lead on this issue because we expect there's going to be a lot of dollars flown in from various entities across the state. I suspect both major political parties will begin to spend here. And so even a little money and some grassroots activism and support can go a long way here and amount to a policy win. I won't spend much time on these, but these are typically the arguments you see against open primaries. Again, I suspect that nobody in this room will have much to critique on these. What I will say as kind of your first response to an independent that wants to vote in the primary should be, well, that state law allows you to register on primary day, right? I mean, their disenfranchisement truly is a choice of their own making. They have the option to register on primary day and vote for either the Democratic or Republican ballots, and they choose not to. And so I myself shed no tears for people like that who consider themselves disenfranchised really by their own doing. So how does ranked choice voting work? I have compiled a little video here, which hopefully will provide a bit more foundation. And I think I just hit play, right, Bill? See, I messed it up. If you could maybe get it going from up there, I can't seem to. I apologize. Yes.
How does ranked choice voting work? Ranked choice voting, also known as RCV, is an election system where voters rank candidates on a numerical scale from their most favorite to their least favorite. But who wins? The candidate with at least 50% of the vote wins. But what if nobody gets 50% of the vote? With RCV, the computer system will calculate which candidate had the least number of votes and reassign those votes to the voter's next choice. If that second round of tallying still doesn't produce a candidate with 50% of the vote, the cycle is repeated in a third round. And if necessary, a fourth round. Did it choose the second favorite candidate? If you didn't completely fill out your ballot and the system needs your next choice candidate, then your ballot is considered exhausted and basically thrown out. That means with each passing round, less people actually have a say in who's elected. So much for every vote counting. Vote no on ballot question 3. Your opinion matters and your vote should count before our election system becomes a confusing mess that strips you of your vote. Stand up against ranked choice voting.
So thank you for indulging us there. We have this video on our website, which you'll see on this one pager here, stoprcvnevada.com. I'm going to be bugging you at the very end of this to scan the QR code so you guys can all become election integrity advocates with us. I'll get to that later. Let's talk about the arguments against ranked choice voting. The four most cogent ones, I believe, are disenfranchisement via the phenomenon of ballot exhaustion, which was just described. Data reflecting that RCV actually decreases voter turnout, the natural confusion and complexity of a new voting system, which leads to chaos and delays that we've seen elsewhere across the country. And then there's the constitutional issue, which I'll get to when we get there. Again, ballot exhaustion is this phenomenon that is very pervasive in ranked choice voting elections. If you do not fill out candidates 1 through 5, if 3 of the candidates you would just hold your nose to and don't want to ever put your vote to them, you are making yourself vulnerable to ballot exhaustion and, ipso facto disenfranchisement from the polls. It is pervasive. So we say that if somebody undervotes, they list too few. If somebody overvotes, these ballots are essentially exhausted by, second, third, fourth rounds is what we see a lot of the time. So any kind of claim made by question 3 proponents that this, increases voter participation and everyone has a say in their candidates, it just really doesn't reflect reality. It truly disenfranchises more people than our status quo does in the traditional sense. We have 2 examples here. Maine is a state that unfortunately adopted ranked choice voting some years back. In the 2018 Democratic primary, we note that there were 9,000 Democratic voters who had their voice silenced via exhaustion from RCV. Similarly, San Francisco is another one of these jurisdictions that's taken up ranked choice voting at the local level. I think in this example, there was something like 15 or 20 people on the final ballot. And so after 20 rounds of tabulations, more than half the ballots were exhausted, which is pretty shocking. And again, San Francisco is the panacea of progressivism. I don't suggest we emulate what they do. We also notice in study after study that contrary to the claims of ranked, question 3 proponents, ranked choice voting actually decreases voter turnout. There's a very comprehensive Cato Institute study came out in 2016 examining how RCV affected San Francisco. In quotes there, the adoption of RCV exacerbated disparities in voter turnout between those who are already likely to vote and those who are not, including younger voters and those with lower levels of education. So if the goal here is to get more people to participate, they are missing the goal. And likewise, Alaska's recent RCV statewide election, they adopted RCV in 2020. Unfortunately, there's now an effort to repeal it. They had a record low turnout of 44% during the midterm. So again, we see voter turnout decreasing generally across the board where RCV has been embraced. The confusion and the chaos and delays that ranked choice voting can bring are commonsensical to me. Again, it urges voters to make decisions about all the candidates on the ballot, prompting them to cast their vote for candidates they may disapprove of or know nothing about. It's likely there will be more candidates on the primary ballot than any individual can possibly research in an effective and efficient manner. So you're putting a lot more onus on the voter here to themselves learn a lot more about the system, which they say is so easy to comprehend. And just the broader statement that a lack of familiarity with ranked choice voting naturally is going to create more confusion, not just for voters, but also for election administrators. So we see that ranked choice voting correlates to more tabulation error and long delayed election results versus traditional elections. There's a great study out of rangevoting.org, talks about error rates and how often ballots are filled out incorrectly with this system, especially for first-time users, unsurprisingly. And the real, I think, damning data point you can point out to friends is that last year in Alameda County, there was a local school board race and there was a ranked choice voting election and somebody was declared the winner. And then 3 months later, they were told, never mind, our machines got it wrong, somebody else won. So we're going to be inviting a lot of new software and voting machines into this process. I don't have a lot of faith with that kind of stuff. I suspect this room feels similarly. Also note that it really makes the practice of auditing an RCV vote, even more time consuming. I mean, damn near impossible. There's going to be a very protracted way that the legislature will be prescribed to instruct counties somehow to make it all in the up and up. But it's going to confuse us even more, and it's going to be even less transparent about what's being counted and where. The constitutional issue is a simple one, but it's worth repeating because I think it's one of the most compelling arguments, not just against question 3, but in recognizing what question 3, not just the merits, but where it will be placed. Question 3 proposes to, again, be enshrined in the Nevada Constitution. What this means is that if we, if it passes in 2024, the first election to utilize RCV would be 2026. If we get to that place, I imagine it's going to be a major chaotic mess. I suspect that Nevada is going to want to go back to the old system right away, but we're going to have an impossible time doing so because doing so will require a prolonged constitutional process. There is no one-time statewide referendum vote option on a constitutional amendment. So putting this in the Constitution means it's there for good, unless those who oppose the system create their own movement down the road and try this Herculean effort of reversing a newly established constitutional amendment. Nicholas?
The whole constitutional issue, what about the U.S. Constitution that violates that?
I am happy to entertain all those. I think there are many legal theories out there that may be valid. I am not an attorney and will not speak to any of those. But yeah, I mean, I think as Americans, the notion that they're throwing away the, one person, one vote system kind of reeks of anti-Americanism to me. Even though they, push it under the guise of unbridled democracy, right?
We're going to have Q&A after 12:30.
And I just only have a few more to go, I think. And on this page, I talked about, it shouldn't be in our Constitution because it's an unproven system. Nevada has never used this system. Democrats in some random primary had their own run through a couple years back, but I don't count that. Generally speaking, voters have no idea what ranked choice voting is. Now, this is a national poll, so take it for what it's worth. But just based on talking to voters in the state of Nevada on a day-to-day basis, most have no idea what question 3 entails. Many have no idea they even voted on it last time around. So take that with a grain of salt as well. Now let's go over the claims made by pro-ranked choice voting people. Because you'll see these four claims more or less recycled, rinsed and repeated. But there's a lot of data out there that just systematically debunks each one of them. So let's get to it. Number 1 claim. It'll reduce polarization of the political parties. This is one of the biggest things they keep talking about, right? There is very little research to support this of any kind. One of the more deep diving analyses, as we show up there, found that RCV actually increased animosity among the two parties relative to the current system. That largely occurs, not from the campaign itself per se, but from their aligned PACs and their third-party vendors. They just kind of outsource the hate to other people, is what happens. So they can't be blamed for it directly, but they have their surrogates do the same kind of attack ads we see every day. And below that, some people, the independents, the disenfranchised, the third-party people think that RCV will give more opportunities to third-party candidates, to independents. Again, comprehensive study. I've listed one here. We have more online. The data just really does not reflect that. We can consider that claim debunked. Claim number 2, increase the diversity of elected government officials. This is probably a claim that most people in this room don't really care about. I don't really care about this. I care about merit in our government. And I take a Martin Luther King Jr. view of colorblindism versus the racial identity politics we now see proliferate today. But again, even if you support, want this claim, want more diversity as the end goal, the data just doesn't back it. Study after study, modest, if any, kind of increase in representation among historically marginalized people, whether that includes everybody besides, the hetero, cis, normative, gender male, I've lost track of the terminology now, or anybody else. Again, there is little analytical support for this claim. Claim 3, made by RCV proponents, increased voter turnout and engagement of voters of color. I like voter turnout, I like voter engagement, but again, this claim fails. It is debunked. There is very little research to support that ranked choice voting increases engagement with marginalized people of color. The San Francisco spoke to that study directly. In fact, it suggested that it exacerbated the existing disparity, so it made it worse. And again, below, I've just listed a couple more studies, so I'm not just full of it.
Ma'am,
Oh, pardon me.
we have to have one of the speakers there.
Oh, you're going to have to move at some point, I think.
I have to move.
Sorry.
Okay.
Final claim, which you'll see a lot, and this is similar to the polarization between the campaigns, but again goes towards negative campaigning. Just not a lot of data to suggest that any of these claims hold their weight. And so when people tell you, and people on the pro question 3 side will tell you these 4 talking points over and over again, ask them, where is your data? What studies do you point to besides your gut feeling that this is how it's going to work out? So in review, and I'm glad that I managed to keep it under 20 or 25 because I can bloviate like the best of them.
Good.
Wonderful. So question 3, 2-pronged, would implement open primaries and ranked choice voting. I consider both of these to be bad elements. I support neither, and I especially don't support either of them in our state constitution. At the end of the day, ranked choice voting can be considered a radical, complicated system of voting, a new one which threatens to upend our traditional one-person, one-vote democratic system, the same one we've had since 1776, 1789. We at Nevada Policy believe ranked choice voting would only serve to further erode Nevadans'